Welcome to the Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority Runway 5 Left, 23 Right Replacement Project Environmental Assessment Public Scoping Presentation. The Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority, or the Authority, is planning to replace its primary runway, Runway 5L23R. The Authority and the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, are providing this presentation for the public to review the following: the Environmental Assessment EA process, agency roles and responsibilities, purpose and need of the project, proposed project description, environmental resources to be analyzed, potential alternatives, and how to provide your scoping comments. The purpose of this presentation is to help you learn the environmental process the Authority will use to replace Raleigh-Durham International Airport's, or RDU's, primary commercial runway. It is also to provide an opportunity for the public to submit comments on components of the EA process. The National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, requires all federal agencies to integrate environmental values into their decision-making processes by considering the potential environmental impacts of their proposed actions and evaluating reasonable alternatives to those actions. An EA is a concise document used to describe a project's potential environmental impacts. The FAA identifies the requirements of the EA because it is the lead federal agency. If the FAA finds a project would not have significant environmental impact, then the FAA will issue a Finding of No Significant Impact, or FONSI, or FONSI. If the FAA finds a project would have significant environmental impacts that could not be mitigated below the level of significance, then the FAA may prepare an Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS. The FAA is the lead federal agency which ensures compliance with NEPA, oversight in the development of the EA, determines whether it may take the federal actions necessary to allow implementation of the project, and determines the appropriate level of public outreach for the EA. The Authority is responsible for the development of the EA content and responsible to obtain FAA approval to construct the proposed project. Regulatory and resource agencies help ensure compliance with local, state, and federal environmental regulations, help identify potentially significant environmental impacts, assist in identifying or evaluating potential alternatives, reviews and comments on EA findings, and issues environmental permits where applicable. As part of this project, the public will provide input on the most pertinent issues and potential environmental impacts during scoping, and review and comment on EA findings. This map shows the three existing runways at RDU. Runways 5L23R and 5R23L are parallel to each other, and runway 1432 is perpendicular to these runways. Runway 5L23R is 10,000 feet long and 150 feet wide, and is the primary runway at RDU. Runway 5R23L is 7,500 feet long and 150 feet wide. Runway 1432 is 3,570 feet long and 100 feet wide. This project is needed to reconstruct a rapidly deteriorating runway 5L23R. Runway 5L23R has exceeded its design life and does not meet FAA's Runway Airplane Design Group ADG 5 standards. It is not practical to continue repairs and full reconstruction is needed. The purpose of the proposed project is to preserve the existing infrastructure and operational capabilities at RDU. Runway 5L23R is the primary runway at RDU, and closure for an extended period of time would have an adverse effect to the national airspace system and Raleigh-Durham region. The purpose of this map is to show the proposed improvements. These improvements include relocating runway 5L23R, converting the existing runway to taxiway, relocating the FAA navigational aids, relocating a portion of Lumley Road and the entire airport perimeter road, and using fill material from borrow sites that are already on airport property. The following actions are proposed for this project: relocation of runway 5L23R 537.5 feet west of the existing runway and replacing it at approximately the same length and width of the existing runway. Usage of up to 5 million cubic yards of fill for the relocated runway. To do this, the fill will come from airport property and, if necessary, from off-site locations. The fill will not be sourced from airport property adjacent to Umstead State Park, and the acquisition of fill material will require vegetation and tree clearing at the borrow site. Usage of up to 150 million gallons of water from Briar Creek Reservoir for the hydrocompression of fill material. If not sufficiently available or unsuitable, water will come from local municipal sources. Water would be used gradually over time to not deplete the reservoir. The project would also include construction of safety areas associated with runway and taxiway development, relocation and/or installation of lighting systems associated with runway and taxiway development, construction of associated and connecting taxiways to the relocated runway 5L-23R, and construction of associated drainage improvements to provide for the additional impervious pavement areas. Finally, the project would include conversion of the existing runway 5L-23R to a full-length parallel and connecting taxiway after the relocated runway is completed, relocation of a portion of Lumley Road out of the relocated runway 5L-23R safety areas, which would include necessary utility relocations, construction of a new airport perimeter road around the relocated runway 5L-23R, relocation of FAA navigational aids, and development and/or modification of associated arrival and departure procedures, and tree, vegetation, and obstacle removal for runway object-free area, ROFA, taxiway object-free area, TOFA, threshold sighting surface, TSS, Part 77, and terminal instrument procedure, TERP's surfaces. The following environmental resources will be analyzed as part of this project: air quality, biological resources, such as fish, wildlife, and plants, climate, coastal resources, Department of Transportation Act, Section 4F, farmlands, hazardous materials, solid waste, and pollution prevention, historical, architectural, archaeological, and cultural resources, land use, natural resources and energy supply, noise and noise-compatible land use, socioeconomics, environmental justice, and children's environmental health and safety risks, visual effects including light emissions, water resources including wetlands, floodplains, surface waters, groundwater, and wild and scenic rivers. A range of alternatives will be reviewed in the EA, including no action, which is no changes from the existing conditions. This option must be evaluated as a requirement of NEPA, and various other development alternatives on airport property to replace the primary runway. Scoping is conducted early in the EA process to get the public's input on the most pertinent issues and potential environmental impacts. During the scoping comment period, the Authority and the FAA ask the public to provide written comments to help identify potential environmental issues deserving more focused study in the EA. The Authority and FAA will review all comments provided during scoping and will determine if it is necessary to perform additional analyses on any specific potential environmental resource beyond what is normally conducted in an EA. Comments may be submitted using one of the following methods. Mail your comments to Chris Babb, Re. RDU EA at Landrum and Brown, 4445 Lake Forest Drive, Suite 700, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45242. Or email your comments to rduea at landrumbrown.com. Comments must be received or postmarked no later than 5 p.m. August 23, 2021. All comments submitted will be considered public record, and your entire comment, including your name, phone number, or email, may be accessed publicly. For additional information, this website, www.airportprojects.net/RDU-EA, will be maintained throughout the EA process to keep the public updated on EA milestones, meeting materials, and documents for public review. The website contains a frequently asked questions FAQ page. If special accommodations such as audio or visual assistance are required to view this information, please leave a message at 984-275-3167 and assistance will be provided. Thank you for listening and participating in the RDU EA project.